The Italian America Show is sponsored by Full Sponsorship. Cento Fine Foods. Trust your family with our family. The Bianchi Law Group. Dr. K, the Management Professor. The authors of the #1 international best-selling cookbook, Don't Cut the Basil. Dr. Mark D'Annunzio, National 4th Vice President, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. The Grand Lodge of New York. The Grand Lodge of Ohio. The Grand Lodge of Virginia. The Grand Lodge of Maryland. The Grand Lodge of the Northwest, representing Oregon and Washington. Long Shot Productions, get back in the game. ACMT, Excellence in Aerospace Manufacturing. Purchase the new book, The Palm Beach PI, by Italian-American private investigator Frank Chiato, available now where books are sold.
We are really, really excited and stoked to have an awesome guest here today, Mike Massimino. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming. I'm going to be co-hosting tonight with Clarissa Burt, the amazing, talented, great Clarissa. Thank you, Clarissa, for being here. And Justin will be moderating. I was going through his credentials. It's ridiculous. Astronaut, professor, engineer, author, speaker, all over the country, media analyst, TV shows, movies, born in Oceanside, New York. So Mike, you've done it all. You've also written some books, and one of those kids' books that's been translated, I guess, into a series that would be for younger children is A True Story of a Young Boy's Journey to Becoming an Astronaut. So, Mike, tell us, how did you get into that space?
To become well, thanks very much for having me, Bob and Clarissa and Justin, and it's a pleasure. You said I was born in Oceanside. I was. But that was only where the delivery was made. I think that was the only hospital, about South Shore Hospital, I think is the name of it. But I grew up in Franklin Square, and my parents were members of the Sons of Italy in Franklin Square. And I've always been a very proud Italian American person, growing up in my neighborhood, and brought that with me to space as well. So throughout my life and career. But how I got into it, originally I was 6 years old when they landed on the moon, and that really caught my attention and made me want to grow up to be like Neil Armstrong. And then as I got older, I figured there's no way I'm becoming Neil Armstrong. I was afraid of heights. I still am afraid of heights. Yes, that can cause problems for astronauts when you're afraid, but we all have our issues. But I just didn't see myself growing up to be a fearless test pilot. But when I got to college, and toward the end of college, I went and saw a movie called The Right Stuff, and it was about the original 7 astronauts and test pilots, and I started looking into what was going on in the space program at that time a little more, which was the space shuttle program. And it did change from when I was a kid. It wasn't just military test pilots; it was scientists and engineers. There still was a lot of military people. And happy Veterans Day to everyone out there. This is an important day. Thank you for everyone for their service and the families who supported our veterans. But I wasn't a military person, but a lot of civilians were being selected as astronauts with the shuttle program. So that started that rekindled the dream for me. And I went to grad school and started applying to NASA. Got rejected 3 times, including a medical disqualification along the way that I had to get overturned. And then I got selected in 1996 on my 4th try.
Yeah, just real quick before we get to Clarissa, I just wanted to ask you, you went to Columbia, you went to MIT, academic institutions. So being a civilian, it's got to be a really competitive position to get. And I'm sure they vet both psychologically, emotionally, and physically. Tell us how rigorous those credentials were for somebody to become an astronaut. How hard is it?
I think the hardest thing, Bob, about being an astronaut is becoming one. After you get in, it's not so bad. It's reasonable, but it is crazy. It is, and that's what I realized right from the start, that my chances were low. There were thousands of qualified, but it's like 7,000 qualified people, and they're going to pick a handful. The year I was selected was a fairly large class. It's 35 Americans were picked. But again, 35 Americans out of, 6,000 to 7,000 qualified people that you look into those applications. How does that happen? And then, getting to the interview and just going through that interview process with there's other people with you as you're going through that process, and you realize this is a pretty good group of people. But just like they're looking at everything. They're looking at, it's not always who's the smartest person in life, right? And so that they're looking for people who are bright, who can learn and be trainable. But more, once you get to a certain level of it, it's more of, at the end, it's really like, who is this person? Are they a good team player? Because that is really important. It doesn't, you have to be able to do the job, but lots of people can do that. It's more of how would you fit in? Is this a person I can trust? And is this a person I can work with? That's the kind of, because I've seen it on both ends. I was wanting to be an astronaut, then I help pick them. After you become one, you get involved with the selection. And you're looking at it at that point, like, who really is this person? Is this a person that, when the chips are down, that I can rely on, that will hang in there and not throw with you? We're not going to throw the other person under the bus, that you're going to win and lose as a team. And that's what it's about. And that's the thing that we're looking for. That's maybe a little bit different. The other stuff, the health part of it, the physical fitness part of that's important, of course. They also do a big, you say they vet, they really vet. They do a pretty extensive background check on you too, where they ask people from your past about you. They try to get to know who you are from all aspects of it, and before they're going to give you this great opportunity. But what I kept in mind, Bob, through all of this, was that my chances might be low, like 1 out of a million, let's say, but my chances would be 0 if I didn't try. And as long as you try, it's a non-zero possibility. It might be small, but the outcome is still possible for success. And that's what I try to remember. And I tell people that no matter what it is, if you don't try, or if you give up, you know what the outcome is going to be. It's going to be 0. So that's what I kept in mind. And I did my best, and I made up my mind that I was just going to keep trying no matter what. And on the 4th try, it worked out.
We'll be right back after this break.
What's the secret to my famous margarita pizza? Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, and cento.
People ask my wife, what's the secret to your bolognese?
A little of this, a pinch of that, and cento. Grandma passed on 2 family secrets. Saute, don't fry,
and always cook with cento.
It's no secret that the best tasting dishes use cento, San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, with nothing added, just authentic flavor for authentic Italian cooking. Cento, trust your family with our family.
The Sons of Italy Foundation is the philanthropic arm of the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. It was founded in 1959 with the purpose of preserving Italian-American culture, encouraging educational excellence among Italian Americans, and assisting in other areas such as veterans' causes and disaster relief. To date, the Sons of Italy Foundation has given tens of millions of dollars to these efforts. For more information on the foundation or to donate, contact us today.
I mean, first of all, to become an astronaut, you have to be a United States citizen, and then we'll talk about what's happening this Saturday.
For the U.S. program. But we have my friend Soichi. My friend Soichi was a Japanese astronaut who's flying on Saturday. He's in my astronaut class. I just went back and forth. I went back and forth. We made him an honorary New Yorker.
All right.
But Soichi, I just was going back and forth with him on email today, and he's a jet. So that each different countries have their own program. We're talking about the American program, but yes,
exactly.
the NASA program.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, you have to have an awful lot of degrees, from engineering to biological, physical, science, computer science, mathematics degrees, and all kinds of things. So you have to be pretty.
Only one category. You don't need all of them, but you gotta have something. Yeah, you gotta study one of those things, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask you this. First of all, as I said, I did my research, and I wanted to go back and show everybody this. So here he is, all suited up, everybody. And what I wanted to know from you is, it looks like you were awfully happy to get off of this planet for a while. And I was wondering, that's a big darn smile right there,
Yeah.
Mike. What was it
That's about 20 years old. I think that was right after I got assigned to my first flight. We took that photo. I was going to be a spacewalker on my first space flight.
Right.
And that was, they took that picture right around about 20 years ago. So
that's a great picture.
I think you're going to say what happened to your hair. This is what happens.
I know.
Radiation exposure in space, I think, did it to me. Yeah, that's a more recent photo from.
Here's the cover. Here, I know.
That's
It's a little bit of a color
about
change.
4 years old.
Here we got it. First of all, it says spaceman. It says an astronaut's unlikely journey to unlock the secrets of the universe. So first of all, I would like to know why unlikely, and secondly, what are the secrets of the universe? Can we talk about them in half an hour? Are there that many?
Yeah. So, all right. So why was it unlikely? I added the word unlikely to the subtitle. Titles are interesting in writing books.
Yep.
Like I think the title. I don't know if I think I was allowed to write anything I wanted in the book, but I think the publisher was like responsible for the title. I had input in it,
right?
But they came up with Spaceman, and then the rest of it, the Unlocking the Secrets of the Universe. That's I think more of a reference to Hubble, the Hubble Space Telescope. So I was an engineer, and when we would have our press conferences. Luckily, luckily we had an astronomer on both of my flights. His name was John Grunsfeld, a very good friend of mine, PhD in astronomy. So whenever we'd get a tough astronomy question, we would just turn it over to John. He would answer what was going on. For me, if I was on my own and they would ask me, what does Hubble do? And I would say, it unlocks the secrets of the universe. So it came from that, that was kind of what I categorized what the telescope did. And that's pretty good, I think. So that's where that part of it came from. The unlikely part, I kind of threw that in there because the way things work, just as we were talking about before, the chances of becoming an astronaut to begin with are low. I never really thought of myself as someone who would be what you would consider to be the typical astronaut, the cool test pilot. That wasn't me. I enjoyed flying and all that stuff, but I just didn't picture myself as that. And the whole thing in general is unlikely to realize that dream that I had as a little kid. So that's where unlikely came from. And yeah, that's where that title came from.
I think we got some questions from the national office there in Washington, Justin.
Absolutely. So Carolyn Rears, who is our Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America national historian, and she's also a former teacher of yours.
She is.
And so she left us two questions to ask you. And the first one is,
are they math questions?
They're not math questions.
I was told there'll be no math.
There's no math questions.
She was my math teacher in 10th grade. Yeah,
And a fellow Franklin Square resident.
Yes, great teacher at Cary High School. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Carolyn was wondering what was going through your mind when you stepped onto the spacecraft for that first flight?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I had, as we said, I was a civilian. I had never been in the military. And again, thank you for the Veterans on Veterans Day. But I had never been in combat or anything like that. And it was a strange feeling leading up to the launch day that that day is coming, and you're very excited about it. But it's also a bit intimidating because typically those days are either good days or bad days, and that it could be a bad day. That's always a possibility. Something bad could happen that day. And I was still very excited, and I was like, oh, it's going to be fine. We're going to be fine. But we get out to the launch pad, that first launch, and it was a early morning launch right before dawn. We lifted off like 6:30 a.m. or something like that. That meant we had to get out to the launch pad, maybe even earlier than that. But we had to get out to the launch pad about 2 or 3 in the morning. It was in the middle of the night when we got out there. So it's pitch black. And the whole area was cleared because they put fuel in the tank for the space shuttle, and then they clear the air. So it's kind of deserted except a few technicians. And it was all lit up brightly. There was no support structure around it anymore for servicing it. So it looked like a spaceship ready to go. And it was water vapor coming off the top from the cryogenic fuel, but it looked like smoke, and it was making these really strange noises. Just bending of cold metal, and it looked like it was alive. It looked like a beast.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all these years of dreaming about it. But like a lot of things, what I found was that thinking about something is usually a lot worse than actually doing that. If that happens, I remember like even taking a test as a kid, like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But you get in there and it's not as bad as you think because you're somewhat ready. You don't think you're ready, but when I saw that, it was pretty intimidating. But once I actually got inside the spaceship, I felt at home.
Yeah.
And so it was intimidating for me and a bit scary before the launch, looking at that spaceship, like, oh my gosh, they're serious about this. And then when like, oh my, we're really going to do this. But once I got inside, I was okay. We had stuff to do. We had a job to do, and it all felt, we were so well trained. The government trains you so well to do these things. NASA did, the military does, to do these types of jobs, that something you could say, I could never do that. It's because you're not trained to do it. Once you get trained, you realize, no, it's something that's reasonable. People can do these sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the second question is a little lighter. Carolyn says that if her memory serves her correct, you were a Mets fan, a diehard Mets fan.
Yes.
And she was wondering if you ever were able to kind of pay homage or tribute to your favorite team while you were in space.
I did. I did a couple things. My first flight, I flew a jersey for the Mets. Actually, it was John Franco, who I've become friends with as a result of this over the years. But John Franco was a pitcher for the Mets and was their team captain. And his father was a New York City employee, worked for the sanitation department. And so they asked me, what player's jersey do you want? I said, well, I'd like to fly John Franco's. So I flew John Franco's jersey in space, and that was, I did that on my first flight. My second flight, I took a home plate from Shea Stadium. So my second flight was in 2009. We thought it was going to be in 2008. We got delayed. This is what happens. But we thought we were going to fly in 2008. So I set it up with the Mets what happened was there was another friend of mine who was a Yankees fan named Garrett Reisman. And for your baseball, we're getting into a baseball discussion, but it's too late. So both Yankee Stadium and Shea Stadium, where the Mets played, were torn down and new stadiums were built for the 2009 season. So both of these stadiums are being wrecked during the 07, 08. I think they were actually that big. They were going to be wrecked after they built the new stadium. So I think 08 was like the last season in Shea Stadium and his last season in the old Yankee Stadium. So anyway, a friend of mine was going to fly dirt from the pitcher's mound in Yankee Stadium on a flight before mine. He was going to fly it in space. So I call up Jay Horwitz from the Mets. I go, Jay, you hear about this guy that's going to fly dirt in space from Yankee Stadium? He goes, yeah, Mike, we can do better than dirt. And they sent me a home plate to fly in space. So I flew, and there's even a longer story, but I'll leave it at that. But I flew a Shea Stadium home plate for the Mets in space. And I've got to throw out a bunch of first pitches for them. And it's been a pretty fun experience being a Met fan and being able to combine it with space travel. So they have a new owner now. So, I'm excited about that too.
We'll be right back after this break.
What's the secret to my famous margarita pizza? Fresh basil, fresh mozzarella, and cento.
People ask my wife, what's the secret to your bolognese?
A little of this, a pinch of that, and cento. Grandma passed on 2 family secrets. Saute, don't fry,
and always cook with cento.
It's no secret that the best tasting dishes use cento, San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, with nothing added, just authentic flavor for authentic Italian cooking. Cento, trust your family with our family.
Watch the Italian America Show every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on News 12 Plus and celebrate the best of Italian American culture. Each week, we will feature an exclusive interview with a prominent Italian American from around the country. You can watch the Italian America Show on Optimum 61, Verizon 530, or stream live from anywhere on News12.plus. For more on Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America, please visit OSDIA.org. Please also follow us on social media.
Mike, let me ask you a question. I'm curious. What was something that you did not expect that occurred on your flights?
I think, for me, I thought it was going to be an amazing experience, something I dreamt about, but it was overwhelming to be there. It was so magical. And the beauty of our planet is what I had heard about, how beautiful it was, but when you see it, especially from a spacewalk. So I was very much concerned about my job on fixing the Hubble Space Telescope, this great scientific instrument, and that's messing that up. And I was the first true rookie who had ever gotten a chance to spacewalk on the telescope. This is by the time I flew was the 4th mission. And so I was a bit of an experiment. I didn't want to let people down. So I was really concentrating on that part of it. But the view of our planet, and especially from where we were at Hubble's 100 miles higher than where the space station flies, for example. So at that higher altitude, you see the curve of the planet, and it's just unbelievable. And the thought I had in my mind when I had a chance just to look at it was, this must be the view from heaven. It was during a spacewalk it was my second spacewalk. So the first one I didn't look around very much, but the second time I had a little more time to look around, and I said, this would be the view from heaven. And I thought, no, it's more beautiful than that. This is what heaven must look like. I felt like I was looking through an absolute paradise. Wow. And I could see that, and then the beauty of it, and also the fragility of it. I realized I'm wearing a spacesuit. I'm only a few hundred miles up. I can't live outside of there's my spacesuit, and how protective it is, and how important it is to keep it as protected as we can. Take care of it. And I also can turn the other way. You can see the blackness of space there. It's just magnificent. But, I looked around, we have no other options. We got nowhere else to go. We got to stay going. We got to keep our planet working. So I think the sheer beauty of the planet and that emotional thing, which I think was maybe your last question, I'll answer that a little bit differently, but it all comes into it of just how beautiful our planet is.
All right, Mike, I'm going to triple stack my questions too, or I might not get you. I have 3 real quick ones. I understand that you were the first person to tweet from space, so I want to know what it said and who it was to. Apparently, I read that the aging process slows when you're up there a little bit, so that was very
not enough, obviously, but yeah, I don't know about that one.
That was intriguing to me, and it says something about your team. You guys won records for spacewalking in time.
Yeah, so the aging process, I don't know about it. It might be related to being the further away you are from the center of the planet, the slower time occurs, but it's not that much. I don't even know if we're talking a millisecond after
I thought I should book a flight or something.
No, that's not working. We had 5 spacewalks in 5 days on both of my missions, and we set a record on my first mission, and we broke it on my second mission for most spacewalking time in a single shuttle mission. So, yeah, we were out there. We didn't get paid any overtime, but we were out there we had some long spacewalks. But if you add up as a team, and I'm really proud of that record because it was something that we really worked hard at, and we had things go wrong, and we got everything done. And it was really a team effort, not just for our spacewalking team or even our mission team, but for the entire NASA team that supported us around the country. Yeah. And then the Twitter thing was interesting. So there's a Neil Armstrong. We were talking about Neil Armstrong before the show. When I first met Neil Armstrong as a new astronaut, I asked him how he came. You know what he said on the moon, right? Everyone knows. Can someone tell me out of the 3 of you?
Small step for man and 1 giant leap for mankind.
Right. Perfect. I remember hearing that as a little kid, saying, "Wow, that's pretty good." Right. That was a very famous. Yeah. That was a very famous thing. So when I first met Neil Armstrong, I was actually on a lunch line, believe it or not. He was in town. He was in town for a meeting, for a reunion, and we were on the and I go, "Look, Neil, I introduced myself to him. I hope I don't bother you, but I got to ask you, how'd you come up with that? Did you ask your wife? Did you get a publicist? Who came up with that?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Mike, I didn't think about what I was going to say until after I got on the moon." I was like, "Really?" He said, "Mike, if I didn't land on the moon, there'd be no reason to say anything." Right. And he could tell I was kind of like a new young astronaut. And he gave me some guidance. And he said, "Look, Mike, you're new at this business, but in this business, you got to put your job first and worry about all that other stuff. All that publicity comes after. Can't think about that until after. All right. You got to put your job first." And he goes, "You got it?" And I said, "You're my all-time greatest hero. I got it." And I remember that. So it came out that, that Twitter was getting popular. I wasn't really paying attention because I was busy training for the flight. But right around like April of 2009, we flew in May. NASA Public Affairs says, there's this thing called Twitter, and we'd like you to be the first guy to tweet from space. We think you'd be the right guy for that. Your commander says it's okay. And I was like, okay. So, and so I was going to do this first tweet, and I started tweeting on the ground. But the press asked me. The press said, what's going to be your first tweet? What are you going to tweet? And I said, I'm not worrying about it. So I'm concentrating on getting to space. I'll worry about what I'm going to tweet after I get there. So we get to space and we open up the computer just like the one I have in front of me right now. And I got the Twitter thing going. I'm going to write the tweet. And I realized that advice I got from Neil Armstrong was like the worst advice I ever got in my life. As I'm floating, and I started doubting my hero. I was like, how do you, I'm just floating around up in space in zero gravity. This guy's on the moon and he comes up with that. So he had to think about it ahead of time. So all I said, launch was awesome. An adventure of a lifetime has begun. And I sent it down and kept working. And as a result of this, they made fun of me on Saturday Night Live. On Saturday Night Live, that next Saturday, he said, we have our first tweet from space. And here it is. And it's Mike Massimino. It said, launch was awesome. And it was Seth Meyers doing Weekend Update. And he goes on to say, in 40 years, we've gone from one giant leap for mankind to launch was awesome. If we ever discover life in the universe, this is how we'll hear about it from this guy. And it shows my little Twitter thing. It's like, geez, dude, aliens. So I got made fun of on Saturday Night Live as a result of this tweet. So that is the long story. There's more to the story, but we're out of time.
All right, well,
So we're out of time, but that's part of the story of the first tweet from space.
Justin's got some questions for
Well,
you.
absolutely. I know we're getting short on time, and there are some great questions coming in. And Debbie Liberia wrote in a question that I think kind of sums up some other questions that were written in. And it's a short one. What advice do you have for anyone that's a young person aspiring to be an astronaut or go to space or be involved in that world?
Yeah, I would encourage you. I think it's a lot of exciting things. For me, it was the way I saw it was, let me go to NASA and become an astronaut and find out what you like in school. Do your best at it, the best that you can do. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Just do the best you can and don't give up and just keep trying. And I think that leads you to a good outcome. Do what you love.
Where can people find your books?
Yeah, sure.
Where can they find how to engage you as a speaker? Where do we find?
Thanks. So I appreciate it. Thanks for mentioning that, Bob. Probably the best place to get a hold of me for all that stuff is MikeMassimino.com, my website. And if you're interested in having me speak somewhere, there's a speaker. You can you can tap on speaker or contact. Or if there's a media thing, you can do that. There's information about my book there. That's how you can find me. I appreciate you mentioning that, Bob.
This interview was something in the making for a long time. We were so excited to have you. We really appreciate your time.
That launch was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll conclude our show. Thanks again, Mike.
For more related topics in this series, please visit our YouTube channel, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. For more information on Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America and how to join, please visit OSDIA.org. Please also follow us on social media. The Italian America Show is sponsored by Full Sponsorship, Cento Fine Foods. Trust your family with our family. The Bianchi Law Group. Dr. K, the Management Professor. The authors of the #1 international best-selling cookbook, Don't Cut the Basil. Dr. Mark D'Annunzio, National 4th Vice President, Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. The Grand Lodge of New York. The Grand Lodge of Ohio. The Grand Lodge of Virginia. The Grand Lodge of Maryland. The Grand Lodge of the Northwest, representing Oregon and Washington. Long Shot Productions, get back in the game. ACMT, Excellence in Aerospace Manufacturing. Purchase the new book, The Palm Beach PI, by Italian-American private investigator Frank Ciato, available now where books are sold.